Debt. It's a concept as old as civilization itself. We often think of debt in modern terms: credit cards, mortgages, student loans. But the story of debt goes back much further, to the very dawn of organized society. It's a story intertwined with the rise and fall of empires, the daily lives of ordinary people, and the very fabric of our social structures. Debt didn't start with credit cards. It started with empires. Let's journey back to ancient Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, nestled between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Here, in the Fertile Crescent, agriculture flourished, and with it, the need for systems of exchange and credit. But unlike today, where we primarily use cash, in ancient Mesopotamia, people borrowed grain, not cash. Grain was the lifeblood of the economy, the staple food, and the primary means of storing wealth. Farmers would borrow grain to plant their crops, promising to repay it after the harvest. These agreements weren't scribbled on paper as they are today. Instead, your IOU wasn't on paper. It was baked into bread, or rather, etched into clay. Cuneiform tablets, small and durable, served as records of these transactions. The amount of grain borrowed, the interest rate, and the repayment date were all carefully inscribed, witnessed, and preserved. These tablets offer us a fascinating glimpse into the economic lives of the Mesopotamians, revealing a sophisticated system of credit and debt. But what happened if you couldn't repay your loan? The consequences could be severe. Can't repay your loan? They might take your cow or your daughter. Debt could lead to the loss of property, livestock, or even personal freedom. In some cases, individuals could be forced into indentured servitude to work off their debts. This harsh reality highlights the vulnerability of borrowers in these early societies and the power dynamics inherent in debt relationships. While the concept of interest is nothing new, the rates could be quite high. In Babylon, interest was capped at 33%, which still sounds illegal even by today's standards. This cap, while seemingly exorbitant, was an attempt to regulate lending practices and protect borrowers from predatory lenders. However, even with these regulations, debt could still be a significant burden for many. Debt wasn't just a matter of personal finance, it had profound implications for the entire society. This wasn't just family business. Debt shaped kings and coups. The accumulation of debt, particularly among the lower classes, could lead to social unrest and political instability. Rulers had to be mindful of the potential consequences of widespread indebtedness. Recognizing the importance of regulating debt, the famous Code of Hammurabi, one of the earliest known legal codes, literally had rules for debt and default. These laws addressed issues such as interest rates, loan terms, and the rights of both borrowers and lenders. The code aimed to create a more just and stable society by providing a framework for managing debt relationships. In times of crisis, some rulers took drastic measures to alleviate the burden of debt. Some rulers canceled debts just to stop revolts. Imagine that election promise. These debt cancellations, known as clean slates, were often implemented to prevent social upheaval and maintain political control. By wiping out debts, rulers could restore economic stability and appease discontented populations. These acts of debt forgiveness weren't always driven by altruism. It wasn't generosity, it was survival. Rulers understood that a heavily indebted population was a vulnerable population, susceptible to rebellion and external threats. By addressing the issue of debt, they could strengthen their kingdoms and ensure their own survival. The consequences of unchecked debt could be devastating. Too much debt caused city-states to collapse. The accumulation of unsustainable debt could cripple economies, leading to widespread poverty, social unrest, and ultimately, the decline of entire civilizations. The story of Sumer serves as a cautionary tale. Sumer didn't fall in a day. It collapsed under unpaid IOUs. The weight of unpaid debts, combined with other factors such as environmental changes and political instability, contributed to the downfall of this once great civilization. The lessons learned from ancient Mesopotamia remain relevant today, reminding us of the importance of responsible lending, sound economic policies, and the potential dangers of unchecked debt. Ancient Egypt had a different system: debt and labor. They didn't tax income, they taxed your body. Building pyramids? That was the IRS knocking. If you owed grain, they might call you up for 30 days of hauling stone. Egypt's economy was built on labor debt, paid with beer and bread. Even pharaohs knew. Carbs keep workers quiet. Fast forward to Athens. Debt led to slavery. Solon, the reformer, abolished it and became a legend. They called it a sysaktheia, a shaking off of burdens. Basically, the OG student loan forgiveness. In Rome, debt was political dynamite. Julius Caesar canceled debts to win favor before crossing the Rubicon. Later, emperors minted fake silver to pay off real debts. Spoiler, it didn't work. The medieval period, often romanticized in tales of chivalry and honor, was also a time of immense financial strain for its rulers. Kingdoms were built and broken on the ability to secure and manage funds. By the Middle Ages, monarchs, constantly seeking ways to finance their ambitions, often found themselves in dire straits. To make ends meet, they pawned their crowns, literally. These weren't just symbols of power. They were valuable assets that could be exchanged for much-needed capital. War is expensive. Maintaining armies, forging weapons, and laying siege to castles all required vast sums of money. When you're paying knights in gold, not gratitude, the costs quickly escalate. The reliance on mercenaries who demanded payment up front further drained royal treasuries. The endless cycle of conflict and debt became a defining characteristic of the era. The financial instability of kingdoms had far-reaching consequences. Some kings defaulted so often on their loans that Italian bankers, the financial powerhouses of the time, fled, fearing for their investments and the security of their assets. This exodus of capital further destabilized the already fragile economies of these kingdoms, creating a vicious cycle of debt and decline. Debt, surprisingly, played a pivotal role in shaping the Renaissance. The need to manage complex financial transactions and track debts led to innovations in accounting and finance. Florence, the cradle of the Renaissance, was built on double-entry bookkeeping, a revolutionary system that provided a clear and accurate picture of financial standing. This innovation allowed for better management of resources and fueled the economic growth that characterized the era. Banking families like the Medicis rose to prominence, wielding immense financial power. They funded not only magnificent works of art that defined the Renaissance, but also, more controversially, revolutions and political intrigues. Their wealth allowed them to influence the course of history, shaping the political landscape of Europe. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, in China, they were grappling with similar financial challenges. Centuries ahead of the West, they invented paper money, a revolutionary concept that simplified transactions and facilitated trade. However, this innovation also brought with it the risk of inflation, a problem that would plague economies for centuries to come. The Ming Dynasty's economic collapse? Yep, debt again. Overspending, coupled with mismanagement and a reliance on unsustainable financial practices, led to its downfall, demonstrating the enduring power of debt to shape the course of civilizations. America, born in debt. The revolution was funded with French loans and war bonds. After independence, Hamilton created the national debt on purpose. He believed debt equals trust, and trust equals growth. Spoiler, he was half right. Every crisis since, Civil War, Depression, World Wars, exploded debt, but also built the modern economy. Social Security, debt-funded, highways, debt-funded, YouTube, well, not debt-funded. The year was 2008. The world teetered on the brink of financial collapse. As the dust settled from the subprime mortgage crisis, a stark reality emerged. Global debt had reached a staggering $142 trillion. This wasn't just numbers on a screen. It represented the collective obligations of nations, corporations, and individuals, a weight threatening to sink the entire global economy. The seeds of this crisis had been sown over decades, fueled by deregulation, unchecked speculation, and a relentless pursuit of profit. The consequences were devastating, leading to widespread job losses, foreclosures, and a deep sense of uncertainty about the future. It was a wake-up call, a stark reminder of the fragility of our financial systems and the dangers of unchecked debt accumulation. Fast forward to 2025, and the situation has only intensified. We're now pushing a mind-boggling $315 trillion in global debt. That's more than 3 times the entire global GDP. This exponential growth raises serious questions about the sustainability of our current economic model. Are we building a future on a foundation of sand, destined to crumble under the weight of our collective obligations? The sheer scale of this debt is difficult to comprehend, but its implications are far-reaching. impacting everything from government spending to individual investment decisions. The relentless climb of this debt counter serves as a constant reminder of the challenges that lie ahead. In the modern world, empires aren't built with swords and shields, but on the strength of their credit ratings. These ratings, assigned by powerful agencies, determine a nation's ability to borrow money and influence its standing in the global financial order. A high credit rating opens doors to investment and growth, while a low rating can trigger economic instability and even collapse. This system, while seemingly objective, is often subject to political influence and market manipulation. The power wielded by these credit rating agencies is immense, shaping the destinies of nations and impacting the lives of billions. Student loans, credit cards, mortgages, these modern financial instruments may seem light years away from ancient civilizations, but at their core, they're all just updated versions of Babylonian debt contracts. The concept of borrowing and lending, of owing and being owed, has been around for millennia. The clay tablets of ancient Mesopotamia, inscribed with records of loans and interest rates, are the ancestors of our digital ledgers and credit scores. We've simply refined the tools and expanded the scale, but the fundamental principles remain the same. So what's today's finance tip? In a world drowning in debt, how can you navigate the treacherous waters and secure your financial future? The key is to understand the crucial difference between productive debt and parasitic debt. Productive debt is an investment in your future, an asset that generates income or appreciates in value. Think of a loan to start a business, purchase a rental property, or acquire skills that increase your earning potential. Parasitic debt, on the other hand, is a drain on your resources, consuming your income without generating any return. This includes high-interest credit card debt, payday loans, and financing frivolous purchases. Is taking out a loan for education or a house a good idea? Maybe. These are significant investments that can pay off handsomely in the long run, but only if approached with careful planning and a realistic assessment of your ability to repay. A well-chosen education can open doors to higher-paying jobs, while owning a home can provide stability and build equity over time. However, it's crucial to avoid overborrowing and to understand the terms and conditions of your loans. But debt for fast fashion and fake influencers? A resounding hard no. These are examples of parasitic debt at its worst, fueling a cycle of consumption and instant gratification that ultimately leaves you poorer and more indebted. Resist the temptation to keep up with the Joneses and focus on building a solid financial foundation based on sound principles and long-term goals. Debt, in and of itself, isn't inherently evil. It can be a powerful tool for growth and progress. But if we forget the lessons of history, if we ignore the warning signs and succumb to the allure of easy credit, it can quickly become a trap, ensnaring us in a cycle of dependence and financial hardship. Throughout history, civilizations have risen and fallen on the tides of debt. Understanding this historical context is crucial to making informed decisions about our own financial lives. Empires rise on borrowed time, fueled by ambition and fueled by debt. But ultimately, they all face the same reckoning. The bill comes due. When the burden of debt becomes too great to bear, the foundations of even the most powerful empires begin to crumble. This is a lesson that we must heed as we navigate the complexities of the modern financial landscape. So what will our receipt look like? What will be the final tally of our collective debts? Will we be able to pay the price for our past excesses? Or will we be forced to declare bankruptcy, leaving future generations to pick up the pieces? The answer to this question depends on the choices we make today. Follow at _human timeline for more insights into the past, present, and future of debt, and for practical tips on how to build a more secure financial future for yourself and your family. Let's learn from history and make informed choices that will lead to a more prosperous and sustainable future for all.